Hey everyone, welcome to Queerly Recommended, the podcast where we recommend queer films, books, TV shows, video games, and more. I'm Tara Scott. I review queer women's fiction at the Lesbian Review, Smart Bitches Trashy Books, and Lambda Literary. And this week, I am actually recommending another queer documentary.
And I'm Kris Bryant, a contemporary romance writer with almost 20 sapphic books, and I will be recommending a Netflix series.
So we want to start off just with a big shout out because a couple people supported us on Ko-fi. If you don't know what that is a site that lets you support your favorite content creators. And we do have a link in the show notes if you're interested. If not, totally cool. But we want to say huge thank you to Peggy as well as Shawnee. Yay. I hope I'm saying your name right. And Shawnee included the note, thank you for being. So honestly, just thank you so much to both of you. We so appreciate your support.
Yes, thank you.
Now, Kris, today, by today, I suppose I mean the day that people are actually listening to this.
May 10th.
A week from, that's right, May 10th, which is a week from when we're recording, is a very exciting day for you because it's your book birthday!
Woohoo!
Yes! What is it? Where is it? And what's it about?
Okay, it is called Forever, and it can be found on Amazon. You can find it Barnes & Noble. You can find it Bold Strokes Books. It's everywhere. It's general release day, and it is about a queer dating show, reality show. So it's behind the scenes and also in front of the camera. So it's kind of fun. I had so much fun writing this book.
Well, they keep not making queer dating shows, so we need more books
right
with them until it happens.
Right. I think it's important. I think Australia has I want to say a lesbian bachelorette now, maybe? Something like that.
Do they? Or was it, I thought the story out of Australia was two women on The Bachelor ended up falling for each other.
I don't know, but I'm going to go with both. Let's just go with both and be queer happy.
I'm into it.
Okay.
All for it. Also, in 2 days, it's your real birthday.
It is.
Hey, Kris, are you finally able to drink?
I am finally able to drink, and I'm still waiting to get carded, but I'm now finally able to legally drink in my country.
Hooray! So I think it would be great if anybody wanted to support Kris for her birthday. The best way you could support her for her birthday, first of all, if there are any of her books that you haven't read, pick one up.
Like Forever.
Maybe read it. Leave a review. Exactly, Forever. Nobody's read Forever yet. Unless
you're a reviewer.
Unless you're a reviewer or one of those people who bought it early off the Bold Strokes Books website. So if you are one of those people, another great way would be to donate to your local animal shelter, because we all know animal shelters are near and dear to your heart.
They are. I love them. So here's the deal. It's a quick story. Amazon it was National Pet Day yesterday on Amazon. I don't know if it was National Pet Day in real life, but there were all these like really good deals. A lot of shelters need leashes and harnesses, and I couldn't pass them up. I literally couldn't. So I kind of went out of order on my Patreon because every month a new patron or a different patron gets to pick their shelter. I went out of order, and I had KB Draper. I picked her. I called her up. I said, I need you to pick a shelter because I'm buying all this stuff and I'm delivering it to my house so that we can take it somewhere. So pick something. So for June, she's got June donations, and we're going to find a shelter around the Kansas City area and go deliver all these goodies. But I mean, the thing is, we're trying to get as much bang for our buck as we can.
Yeah.
And when you have a deal like, $5 leashes, like the real heavy duty kind, and $10 harnesses, you got to jump on it. So I did. So,
good for you.
Yes. I
love it. So Kris, I heard you did something pretty interesting and pretty powerful on the weekend.
Yeah. So I went to a rally. Grain Valley is a few towns east of where I live, like about 15 minutes from my house. And the teachers in the school district have safe space rainbow stickers in their classrooms, just to let the queer kids know that they could go there if they were being bullied or just needed a place to be themselves or have somebody to talk to. And one parent in the school district, complained to the school board, and they shut him down. They're like, you have to take the stickers out of the windows. There too many people have complained, and it was one person. So I thought it was going to be a good idea, and I'm glad that I did it. They organized kind of a rally to support the LGBTQ youth at Green Valley from high school to the middle school. And it was great. There was probably about maybe 70 people that showed up with signs and just to support. And it was great. And like I get out of the car and I have my huge Progress Pride flag, it's like 3x5. And I'm putting it, I'm going to tie it around my neck like a cape.
Yeah.
And this little queer kid comes running up to me and says, can I help you? Can I tie that for you? And I'm like, absolutely. And they said, I'm really good at it. And I'm like, oh my God, yes, I want to take you home. You're so adorable. I'm here for you. I didn't say that, but that's what I thought because it was so cute. And so then they tied it for me. And so for the whole rally, I was wearing this like a cape, and it just felt so good to go out there and just support our queers.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Wow. And with things like the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, and states where getting gender affirming care for your trans kids is becoming illegal, it's so important. It's necessary to show up,
right?
Say something and do something.
And I don't have any kids. It was one of those where it's fairly important, and they need safe spaces. Kids do. And
yeah.
I just
and I don't think you need to have kids to know it's the right thing to do to
right.
show up and support. And when you were for some reason, because you told me the story a couple days ago, we were actually supposed to record this a couple days ago, and I had unfortunately microphone issues, so we decided to postpone it. And it didn't strike me then, but to just now, the way you described it, and this kid saying, I'm really good at it. And my first thought was, a kid shouldn't have to be good at prepping for protests.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Except the kids are, because the kids are the ones that are standing up and they're doing something, and it's so good.
Right. And it was amazing how many people were honking for, to support everybody. There were a couple asshats because that's what you're going to get with any rally. But it was very enlightening, and they allowed, there was a microphone or a loudspeaker, a bullhorn or whatever it's called, loudspeaker, I think, and you could get up and tell your story. And so many kids did. It was great to hear. I mean, I was crying how many times? Like the whole time I was crying because I cried everything. So it was, yeah, it was absolutely wonderful. I'm so glad that the teachers showed up, that other students showed up to show their support. And I think one teenager actually came out at that rally.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. And then one parent was crying because she went to that school back and graduated in 1992, and it was awful for her. So her story made everybody cry, and so everybody wanted to hug her, but we're like, it's COVID. So, so it's like, what do you do?
Wait, there's still a pandemic.
I know it filled my heart, to see people gather for something so important. So yeah, that's what I did last Friday. So
when you first told me about it was on Sunday, and now it's Tuesday night, May the 3rd, that we're recording this. And so we're actually recording it the night after the Roe v. Wade draft leak. How does it feel like, in light of that, which so many people are talking about having ramifications for other rights-based cases, and the expectation that LGBTQ rights will be next, which frankly, like we were just saying, it's already happening anyway.
Right.
Does it change the way you perceive that event? And do you see yourself showing up for more in-person activism?
Oh, for sure. It shows you how important it really is. I mean, it was important last Friday, and it was important all weekend. And now it just hit a crisis level where now we have this one thing that could disappear. And now they're going to first it's women's rights, and then it's going to come down to gay rights, LGBTQ rights, and we're going to lose the right to get married. I mean, that's going to be next. I mean, it was such a fight to get that. How many decades did it take?
Yeah.
And it just only takes, one freaking court to take it away. So I feel like I'm moving to somewhere. It's either in your basement or Uruguay.
You know what? Come to our basement.
Okay. It's closer.
I know this is a time where, well, and I mean, honestly, like, we're recording this on the 3rd. It's going up on the 10th. Who even fucking knows what happens in the whole next week? Like, it feels like the pace of change is so hard to keep track of. But if I've been seeing anything right now, other than, anger, fear, despair, all those things, but there is that desire to do something. And of course, please, please, please plan to show up and vote like your life depends upon it in your midterms in November. I mean, I know I'm saying that from Canada, but like literally the whole world is watching you and watching your country to see what's happening. And this actually is our listenership is pretty global, which kind of surprises me sometimes. And when I see like, oh, we have listeners in India and in Russia and like literally all over the world. And we are so grateful for the listeners everywhere. But I think if somebody's listening to this show, no matter where they're located, we want these rights to continue to exist in the US. So if you want to do something again, if you are American, please plan to show up and vote. And also, I'm going to put a link in the show notes. There are many, many, many abortion funds across the US, and I know it can be hard to know which to choose. If you have one that's local to you, please donate it to it. If there is one in a state that is, you have a fondness for that state, it's, in your heart and you really care about it, obviously give directly to that. But in the show notes, we are putting a link to where you can support the National Network of Abortion Funds, and your donation will be split between more than 80 funds across the US. I was able to donate through my workplace giving program, and my company matched my donation.
Oh, nice.
So I will also say, if your company has a workplace matching program and has software for that, donate through that. If you're going to get a match, and more money will go to, like, now is the time. We need that support out there as much and as quickly as possible. So
yeah, because once that hits, I mean, if it goes away, it's immediate. I think it's like 26 states.
Yeah.
It's Missouri, my state. Like, they're probably the first ones going, okay, let's board up the doors. Too bad.
Yeah. But also, in the meantime, if you have an appointment booked, if you know someone who has an appointment booked, you can still go.
Right.
It is still legal.
Right.
So do what you need to do.
I know. I checked with as soon as it leaked, I reached out to my friend Morgan, who's in Washington, D.C., and she was obviously extremely livid, and they were already putting up barricades because they knew.
Yeah.
The police knew that it was already going to start, and it sure shit started. Like, they are protesting already. So
yes.
Anyway, it should be really stressful next 2 months for us. I think it's like 2 months or so, 6 weeks, 8. I don't even know. It just sucks.
So interestingly, on a completely different note, but perfectly timed, we did get a listener question from one of my best friends. Kris, would you like to read the listener question?
Yes, I would love to. The question is, what is the most comforting read you would recommend that you have revisited again and again?
Stacy was very clear. So she's one of my best friends. She asked this question, and she even put in brackets, "That's not Who's Your Daddy, because I already know about it from you," which I'm like, okay, a little teeny tiny read in there at the same time, perhaps. I don't know. She enjoyed it, so that's good. So I thought about it, and I mean, the first thing that sprang to mind really is something I've been talking about all over the place recently, which is Truth and Measure. I have read, like, when I really need a comfort read, I would always go to the Truth and Measure fanfic. Of course, now I don't need the fanfic. So for me, I was having a rough time. I would personally go and read Truth and Measure and then immediately keep rolling into Above All Things, which, by the way, both parts are out everywhere now, so you're safe to go read the whole thing. I know it's not necessarily going to be everyone's cup of tea, mostly just because some people are not into age gap romances, which this is. Some people are not into workplace romances, and they do start with Jules reporting to Vivian. I almost said Andy reporting to Miranda, but
nope.
The fanfic. So if you need something that doesn't have one of those, then I would actually say my other one is All That Matters by Susan X. Maher, which is a friends to lovers romance between these two women. The thing that I find interesting about this one, very much like Jericho by Anne McMahon, is that it's a friends to lovers, but we actually get to watch the friendship form from the very beginning, from like when they first meet. Mm-hmm. And then it's like this, so they become friends and a genuine friendship develops, and then it becomes romantic, and then they get their happily ever after, and it's very lovely. Mm-hmm. So Kris, what about you?
So I'm just going to tell Stacy that I'm not answering that, because I'm going to answer it like, what is my favorite like comfort movie that I go to every time? And the reason why I say that is because it's hard to, write as much and then read as much and then work as much. So for me, it's always easier for me just to turn on the TV and have something playing in the background. And I will stop every single damn time if I'm scrolling through like what's playing on television, because I'm old school and I still have cable, but I do stream. Like I said, it's mainly for noise. But every time While You Were Sleeping is on, I will watch it every single time. Every time. I love it. Mm-hmm. That is my comfort movie. I mean, back in the day, it used to be Pretty Woman. Like, I can recite that movie almost like line for line.
I haven't watched Pretty Woman since high school.
Right. See? But I know it.
It doesn't hold up, does it?
It doesn't hold up. Well, no, it doesn't hold. It's like Friends. It's like all the Friends lover out there. You got to give it to me, because I'm putting up with you loving Friends, not you personally, but like the people who love Friends. Yeah. I mean, it's hilarious, but it's also didn't hold up well, and neither did Pretty Woman. But I like it. It's one of those. It was from my childhood. I say my childhood. It was from my early youth. Ish. Yeah, I guess.
Now,
so that's true. So that was a movie that I would watch over and over and over again. And I think just because they were so pretty, like Julia Roberts is so pretty, and Richard Gere is so pretty, and it was Pretty Woman, and it was just kind of an interesting, right? Everything about it is wrong, but it was one of those, and I love the music from it. But While You Were Sleeping so far has held up.
All right.
I think. I don't know.
So what else, on a different note, have you been reading or watching lately, Kris?
I watched over the weekend Luca on Disney Plus. It was an adorable movie. Gay undertones, big time. Gay undertones. I say undertones, overtones, whatever.
Undertones.
Subtext. Subtext. There you go. Subtext. Super cute movie about very quote unquote colorful sea monsters that if they come out of the water, they turn into humans. So it was really cute. So you saw it, yeah. So
I did see it. No, I was just making a joke. Okay. I'm just saying, you're like, as he comes out of the water, I was like, yes, much like the closet.
That's true. It's very gay. It is gay. It's cute. It's a cute movie, and like I think kids would love it because it is very colorful, and there are a lot of things going on that's true to kids. Yeah. There's the kind of the bully and the kid that stands up to the bully, and so it's cute. And it's gay.
The girl, the little girl that's their friend, so cute. She's so spunky. And I don't know, when I think of that movie, every time in my head I end up with hey, stupido.
It takes place in Italy, FYI. Yeah. And I also watched the movie Ambulance because I'm dying for action. I love action movies. I love them. I watch them all. But then COVID hit, and then the action movies were pretty lame. So now we're back to, making movies. And so I watched Ambulance with Jake Gyllenhaal. It was okay, but it was like nonstop, like motion. So it was perfect for me.
It feels like action movies have largely, and I don't know, I've kind of floated this with a couple people who mostly raised their eyebrows at me. So maybe I'm just like totally full of shit and I don't pay attention to the movies.
Hit me.
But, like, it feels to me like action movies have largely been taken over by like superhero and Star Wars movies. Like there's so many superhero movies coming out, and if it's not a superhero movie, if it's not a Marvel movie, then it's a Star Wars movie. And like, yeah, there are some DC ones. Oh my God. Speaking of which, I know we're not at my part yet, but
welcome to Monday.
let's get right. In fact, we're recording this on a Tuesday.
Oh shit, that's right, it's Tuesday.
It is a Tuesday, and we are punch drunk because we've been angry for a day.
For sure.
So yeah, I'm gonna go to what I've been reading or watching. So last weekend, Neil handed me an edible and said, "You want to watch the Batman?"
No. It's so dark.
It's so dark. Have you seen it?
I couldn't get through it.
Neither could I. I think we made about 40 minutes, and then our youngest came and interrupted us, and then I was quite happy to never keep watching it again.
Right.
It is so stupid.
You know, I've never really been a fan of Batman. Like, that isn't my jam. It is a very dark, like, the whole thing is dark. Everything about it is dark. But I've kind of started them all. Like, I've seen a lot of them, but this one I just didn't finish. It was like, no, I should be writing. So
yeah,
and it's Edward. Edward is the Batman.
Oh yeah, Robert Pattinson. So here's the thing. Like, I do actually think it was a pretty good bad movie, but then it just like it got slow, and who cares? But Neil had seen it in the theater, and I was like, "Wait, you want to watch this again? Like, did you like it?" And he's like, "I don't know." I said, "Okay, this is an auspicious beginning," and I'm really glad I had the edible because, of course, I laughed a lot more at it. But the whole thing is like, what if Batman? But we take it completely seriously. And then that's like, for me, that's what makes it hilarious, because it's not serious. It can't be that serious. And as soon as you make it that serious, to me, it flips almost all the way back into camp. And I just found myself laughing at moments that, like, I don't think we're supposed to be funny. I could just not laugh at them. And even there's this one point, it's the first time you see him in the Batcave. So he's been out Batmaning around Gotham City, and he goes down to the Batcave, and he's like getting out of some of the costume, but he takes the helmet off, and he's blacked out around his eyes with probably grease paint, but I don't know, maybe some kind of like black eyeshadow. And because he didn't want like the skin showing with the mask there, which makes sense, utilitarian reason. But because he'd been all sweaty because he was beating up bad guys, and that takes a lot of energy, and you sweat a little bit. And then it's like this black makeup that's like going down his cheeks a little bit. And I turned to Neil and I said, "Oh my God, is he an emo Batman?" And he said, "Yes," which again, to me, is the stupidest thing.
Yeah, that's a tough movie.
Like,
it's stupid.
It was so bad. I'll probably never finish it. I don't care. I had a lot of fun laughing at how bad it was in the beginning.
It was. And I can usually watch a movie. I can usually, like, even if I just have it on, just to have it on. But it was just so, like, dark and miserable, and never, like, there was no happiness to it. I'm sure maybe it came afterwards, but I don't know. I didn't stick around to find out. So
yeah. Because I would even say some of the other Batmans were fun, and like they were deliberately fun, and this didn't have that.
Yeah. And I don't know, like, Star Wars, what new Star Wars movie? Is there a new Star Wars movie?
Probably at some point.
Yeah, I'm a Star Wars person, and there hasn't really been a Star Wars movie in a couple of years. But The Mandalorian and Boba Fett, you know, there's other things that came out. But as far as, like, I'm answering your question from like 20 minutes ago about about like the action movies. I think yes, like there have been a lot of like Avengers and then like offshoots of that. But I feel like there have also been, and I don't know why that's the case. I mean, I feel like there have been some action movies, but and I've rented every single one. I'm not even kidding you. Like, if it has any sort of possibility of being an action movie, I've rented it and I've watched it. So it's out there. It's just, they're just hard to find. They're not as blockbustery as, you know, the Marvels.
You know what we need? We need a gay Fast and Furious.
Or we can just take Angelina Jolie from Gone in 60 Seconds and pair her with, oh, the girl from Fast and Furious. What's her
Right.
name? What is her name?
Michelle Rodriguez.
Michelle Rodriguez. I think so.
Yeah,
There you go. Done.
Give me a queer Fast and Furious series, please.
Okay.
Or offshoot. Give me an offshoot. That would be fine. But otherwise, what have I been watching or reading?
Yes.
So,
Besides awful Batman. The Batman.
besides the Batman. So I feel like I've kind of been at loose ends because Drag Race is over. Yes, season 14 is over. Congratulations to Willow Pill, who is absolutely a fabulous queen. I know I was rooting for Lady Camden in the last episode. Lady Camden didn't win, but was in the top 2. And Lady Camden and Willow Pill were absolutely my top 2.
Oh, good.
It's just kind of like, it feels like the rhythm of my week is off. It's kind of like when I stopped going to church and I was like, what is a week anyway? What am I doing on a Sunday? And now there's just like, there's no Drag Race for a few weeks. I'm like, what do I do on a Friday night? But I am super excited about All Star 7. I think that's the most excited I've been about a series in forever. So in terms of books, I feel like my reading brain has been a little bit broken lately in terms of my Kindle. Like my relationship with my Kindle has not been the best as of late, but my relationship with Audible has been fabulous.
Nice.
So I finished, last time I mentioned I was reading Jonathan Van Ness's autobiography, Over the Top. It was excellent.
Oh, good.
It's really a really, really wonderful autobiography. Like I mentioned last time, it's, very raw, talks about, the trauma from childhood sexual abuse and drug addiction and sex addiction and a minor stint with sex work and kind of like just his whole journey and, some of his relationships and how that went and how he ended up, like, I think this came out in 2019. So he was working on Queer Eye at the time. So it was basically up to and including how he ended up on Queer Eye.
Oh.
And now I'm listening to his new book, which is called Love That Story, Observations from a Gorgeously Queer Life. It's so good. I'm almost done. And honestly, for both books, if you're going to read it, do yourself a favor and get the audiobook. Like, just, I'm sure it's fine reading it with your eyeballs, but like, it's so, so good in audio because JVN reads it himself.
Oh, good.
It's exactly kind of what you imagine. It just feels like he's talking to me and just like sharing all these things. And Love That Story is not a memoir. And actually, Observations from a Gorgeously Queer Life is a pretty good way to put it. It's less raw, and each chapter has a different theme. So each chapter is kind of like an essay. And so there's chapters where he covers cannabis and body issues. There's one about TERFs and how that really made him change the way because he was a huge Harry Potter fan. And basically you can sum up that chapter with like, fuck J.K. Rowling unless she wants to apologize and, make some gigantic donations to trans organization. It talks about imposter syndrome and the HIV safety net because he's very open about his own HIV status. It's really, really good. And there was one chapter where he talks about learning more about the queer history of his hometown, Quincy, Illinois, which for Queer Eye fans, you'll remember Quincy from the episode when they go back and they make up Kathy. They do like the makeover on Kathy Dooley, his old high school music teacher. It was really cool hearing him talk about how like he didn't realize, he just thought it was such a conservative place. And like it is a conservative place. Like I'm not going to say it's not, but he had no idea like the rich queer history that was there. He didn't know about the gay bar that was owned or hosted by this fabulous drag queen who made everybody feel welcome who came in and kind of all that. And I thought, I wonder about the queer history of my hometown where I grew up. Because he was specifically talking about where he grew up, not where he lives now, because he lives in LA. And so I didn't dig into Calgary's history because that's where I am now. But I looked up Windsor, Ontario, which is where I grew up, right on the Windsor-Detroit border. I grew up about a half an hour outside of it in a little bedroom community. And I was actually shocked. I came across an article where they interviewed a local history teacher who had done like a ton of research into all of this. He's a queer man. And there's this like really, really rich history that goes way back in that area. And so I thought I would share a little bit of that because I just found it so interesting. It actually starts in 1842. So first of all, the fact that there's even information that goes back
Right.
far is incredible. Literally 15-minute walk from where I grew up and where some of my family still lives. There's a fort that was there, and two of the soldiers, two men, were arrested for sodomy. I mean, unfortunately, some of these things I'm going to share at first are not happy stories. They were arrested for sodomy. They were sentenced to hang. They were believed to be one of the first cases of people who were sentenced to be executed for participating in gay sex, I guess. Thankfully, the governor general was like, let's not kill these dudes. Please and thank you very much. So, unfortunately, they stayed in prison, but like that's as far back as it goes. And really, like that far back in Canada's documented history. There was also a local police auxiliary in Windsor that was set up to patrol the local parks. Everybody thought it started because of a serial killer. And there was a serial killer, but it was because the serial killer was targeting gay men who were seeking sex in those parks. And that auxiliary wouldn't have happened without it, which I have mixed feelings about because they're mostly just looking for gay men. Canada's first bathhouse raid was actually there. It's largely forgotten because it was small. There were only like 9 people who were involved, but that was the very first one in 1964. And that particular bathhouse was actually really important because it was part of what was called a gay commute between Windsor and Detroit. So often gay men from Windsor would go over to the bathhouses in Detroit, and gay men in Detroit would come over to Windsor because, like, if you were from Windsor and you were arrested in a bathhouse, you would end up in the local paper. You would be ruined.
Oh.
If they went to Detroit, they would be protected, which I thought was super interesting. The first AIDS death in Canada was in Windsor, which again, I was just like, holy fucking shit, so many firsts, which was a little overwhelming to read about all in one place. But it was also pretty amazing, some of the other stuff. So like Windsor was the 3rd city in Canada in 1977 to include protection for sexual orientation in its collective agreement with municipal employees. Right? There was a law professor from the University of Windsor, which is where I have my undergraduate degree, Doug Sanders. He was the first openly gay man to address the United Nations in 1992 to talk about protecting minorities. And of the 8 couples that went out and fought and were responsible for same-sex marriage happening in Canada, one of them was from Windsor.
Wow.
And so I just thought, and again, this was before, like all of this I was looking up even before what we, learned about with Roe v. Wade and the potential implications for LGBTQ rights and all of that. Like, I found it so interesting and also empowering in a way, really, to see. And there were other cases of like people fighting and winning rights and all that, and specifically people from where I grew up that were responsible for this progress we've had in Canada. And I just found it so heartening because, again, it was that, like, I think we've talked about this before on the show, and it's probably going to become a theme. We've done this before. Like, as a people, the community have come together before, and we can do it again. And like seeing those examples and knowing that they came from the same place I came from, I found really, really inspiring. And so I would say, look up your hometown's LGBTQ history. Learn about it, draw strength from it too, and see what it inspires you to do.
Well, so interestingly enough, Cindy Rizzo, she sent me a link, and it was for a PBS documentary on a community called Womantown, and it's here in Kansas City.
What?
Well, it was here in Kansas City. Yeah. So it says here, a group of women in 1980s Kansas City band together to defy gender norms, transforming 14 city blocks in the Longfellow neighborhood into a revolutionary community by and for women. So I knew none of this. Like that, I was just stunned. And it was actually like it was at its peak between 1991 and 1995. And I think the highest amount of people or members, there were 80. I think 80 was the highest amount.
Oh, cool.
But like, where was I? I mean, I wasn't old enough to be there, but
Right.
it was just, I didn't even know about it until Cindy from New York sends me a link about some place that's 15 minutes from my house. I had no idea, and it was just amazing to watch this. It's only like a 26-minute documentary, and I've seen it twice now. And I'm actually going to participate in a Zoom that they have coming up. Yeah, like the original members, and
Oh,
it was
that's
kind
so
of,
cool.
I know. And so that's cool. So that a lot of the people are still around, and some people have moved on. Some people actually moved to Kansas City because the real estate at the time was unbelievably cheap.
Mm.
And one couple lived in California. They sold their house, their tiny little, I forgot what she called it, but tiny little house for 185,000, and bought a mini mansion in Kansas City in this district. And it's a historical district.
Oh, all right.
They bought this for 100,000 cash. Yeah, I know. So like there was I missed this whole movement of this community trying to come together and just be safe women that had a lot in common, that were like-minded, and I guess it just didn't last. That's sad, because I always joke with my writer friends, like we should buy a huge house and like here in P-town, and we all live here or come here and stay here for writing dates or whatever. And so the idea has always been out there, but I was surprised that in my hometown they actually made it happen.
That's so cool.
Isn't that cool? Yeah. So you're right. Look into your history. There's going to be a lot of rich stuff there.
Well, when I come to Kansas City, we can go tour it.
Yes, because I haven't been yet. Ever since I saw the documentary, I was like, oh, I haven't been. I can't. I mean, I'm working. I can't.
Yeah,
I'm working.
You got a job. You got a podcast. You're writing 90 books.
I got things to do. I mean, I'll find the time to actually go visit the area, but and I'm sure there are still lesbians around that area. But it just kind of like it started. They said in the 80s, but like it hit full force like when it was an actual legitimate community. It was only for 4 years, but like the whole thing went on for several before and after that. So
love it.
I'm gonna go find my people.
I'm gonna see if I can watch it. I bet I probably can. There's a lot of PBS stuff on Canopy, which is a subscription service that's available through the public library systems. So I don't know. Why not?
I'll send you the link. Maybe it works.
Send me a link.
I will.
So, Kris, what is your official recommendation this week?
Okay, so I wanted something fresh and young and queer to watch just to feel good about life. So I picked Heartstopper, which was the most adorable and wonderful story about coming out. So many people were talking about the series on Netflix. It just came out probably like last week or the week before. And the blurb is this. Teens Charlie and Nick discover their unlikely friendship might be something more as they navigate school and young love in this coming of age series. So I wasn't going to recommend this until my experience at the rally and how important it is for young queers to know that they have people they can talk to, and that it's okay to be gay, it's okay to be queer. And so after seeing that, I was like, oh, for sure I need to watch this series. And it was absolutely adorable and I loved it. So we have Charlie, who is 14 years old, and he is out and proud, and he has 3 best friends at school. He's kind of their little group, it's they're all a little bit different, and they all get teased, but that's okay because they love each other and they're a great group of friends. Right. So in secret, Charlie has been kissing this boy, and I think his name is Ben, and Ben's a total asshole. Good looking, sporty guy, and he only uses Charlie just to kiss, just to practice and like fool around and stuff. But in real life, or not real life, but like when he's around a bunch of classmates, like he treats them like crap. He treats Charlie like crap. He's like, oh, I'm sorry about that. And they meet later. I'm sorry about that. Kiss, kiss, kiss. And then just treats him like dog shit. So he finally has enough. He's like, I'm done. We're done. We're over this. And in comes Nick. And Nick is on the rugby team, and he's like super sporty, super popular. The girls think he's just adorable. And honestly, I loved him as well. I want him as my son. If I could have a son, it would be Nick for sure.
Big old rugby
So
player.
right. And he's not even, he's not big or buff or anything like that. He's just a 14-year-old kid.
Oh.
And, he's okay with Charlie being gay. He starts off, you don't know anything about him. And he's very protective of Charlie. He's friends with him. He doesn't care that his buddies don't like him. Like Nick's rugby buddies don't like Charlie because he is gay. And so Nick's like, I don't care. And he actually invites Charlie to become part of the rugby team because they need another person as like a sub. They need a sub. They don't have anybody to substitute, and they just need a body. And he's like, you'll never have to play. It's okay. So of course, Charlie's developing feelings for Nick. So he's going to do it because, think of all the stupid shit we did when we were trying to impress somebody we liked. Yeah.
No, thank you. I
still do that.
Those days.
So then it's kind of interesting as the show goes on. There's like 8 episodes, and it goes pretty quickly. It's pretty fast. Nick is you find out he's trying to figure out his own sexuality, and he's really struggling with it. So he goes online and he types in the Google search, how do you know if you're gay? And he takes a quiz, and he finds out he's 62%. And he's like he's really trying to figure things out. And so finally he and Charlie kiss. And he's like, look, I really like you. I'm not comfortable coming out yet because I don't really know what I am. So can we keep this private? So Charlie's like, great, here I go again. I'm back in the closet, but it's a total different experience. It's a positive experience with Nick because he's open to let Charlie's friends know that they're together. And it's just such a great story. And then he finally comes out, and he comes out as bi, and it's just beautiful. I mean, it's just such a good feeling, and every freaking person should watch this series for sure. I have nothing bad to say about it. It's nothing but cute. It's heartfelt, especially after seeing, the shit that went down in Grand Valley. For sure, everybody who has ever struggled in school, which I think all of us have. And it's just a feel-good movie that reminds the world that, how hard it is to be gay, and coming out is easy for some, but not for all. So the struggle is real. So yeah, it's a great series. I recommend it very much.
It's horrible.
It is. You need to see it. It's really cute.
All right.
So yes, what is your official recommendation this week? I know what it is. Hint, spoiler. I know what it is. Hint, spoiler. I watched it.
Twice, right?
No, you probably one time.
Yeah, right. You probably watched this one just once.
Right.
So my recommendation this week, like I said at the beginning, it's another documentary, and it is called Mapplethorpe, and it is about the prolific gay photographer Robert Mapplethorpe. This actually came in as a recommendation from one of my colleagues at work who said, have you ever watched the documentary about Robert Mapplethorpe? It's incredible. And I said, all right, you've piqued my interest. And I mean, I was kind of interested anyway, because, I think I talked last year on the podcast about listening to Patti Smith's book, Just Kids, which is about her relationship with Robert Mapplethorpe, kind of her early childhood and how she came to New York City. And he basically saved her one day. And he was they were together as romantic partners, and then they kind of remained as friends and all that. And so I thought, well, yeah, I mean, this is exactly because I'm still kind of interested in that period and that scene and the intersection of the punk scene with what Warhol was doing, and Patti Smith and Robert Mapplethorpe are all a part of that. And so the first thing I'm going to say is that if you want to watch this, it's an HBO documentary. It's not safe for kids because there's a lot of Robert Mapplethorpe's photography, and a lot of it is just erotic. There are lots and lots of penises. They show photos from his X collection, which is all, very provocative, and includes a photo of a man fisting another man. Actually, I think it's him fisting another man, maybe. There is also a photo, the very, very famous photo of him with the handle of a bullwhip in his anus. And so, like I said, not for kids.
Safe for kids.
Not safe for kids. Perhaps not safe for your parents, depending on who you are in the relationship you have with your parents.
Not safe for my parents, for sure.
Not safe for mine either. And so the whole reason they did this, they anchored it kind of around the fact that there were these two shows, I think in Los Angeles, that were happening, right? They basically decided these two museums were both going to put on a show, a retrospective of his work at the same time. And so it was like bringing curators from two museums together. And so we see them sort of talk through little bits of it. And then it goes basically through his life. And so it really starts with his early life. And you see photos of him as a child in the 1950s with the same little dorky haircuts that every little boy had in the 1950s. And his sister talks a lot about his childhood. And then his youngest brother actually shows up quite a bit in it as well, because at one point his youngest brother actually becomes one of his assistants. It goes through his various relationships, really focused largely, like it focused a lot on Patti Smith at first, and they had her speaking. She was never on camera, but she was interviewed and speaking in it, which is, again, not a surprise. She still speaks fondly of him to this day. And we get to see, you know, the last lover that he lived with and some of the lovers that he had in between. I have to admit, I was kind of surprised that Sam Wagstaff barely featured in it at all, because he was one of the ones, like, I'm trying to think of how to tell this. So they showed the man that he started cheating on Patti Smith with, who was one of the men he was photographing, and he was a model. But then, like, Sam Wagstaff was the money.
Mm-hmm.
And everything I've read about them, and I haven't read either of their biographies, and I will at some point. But my understanding is that, like, so Sam Wagstaff just fell completely in love with him, let him take like photos of him that he never would have before, bought him like a penthouse, but they stayed in relationship until Sam Wagstaff died. And I feel like that was kind of one of the parts that was missing for me, because it kind of immediately went on to, and then he fucked this guy, and then he fucked this guy, and then because he banged a lot of people.
But he also banged a lot of people when he's with Sam.
Yes.
Because he said it was just for love. I mean, he was with Sam for love and money, but with the other guys, it was just sex.
But did you notice that too? Like, for me, it kind of felt like there was like, okay, and these are the photos of Sam, and this is sort of what Sam had to say. Sam bought him the penthouse, and then Sam kind of disappears, and then you find out, and then on this date, Sam died, and I'm like, oh, I thought there would be more about Sam, but I guess there's not. I found it really interesting. So I knew that when he was with Patti Smith, he was making jewelry. And that was kind of one of the ways that he was creating art. And it was kind of to try to bring in a little money for them. But I didn't realize that his shift into photography actually really started with making his own art from porn magazines. Like, he grabbed gay porn magazines and he would, you know, cut out the pictures, and he would do different sort of artistic things to them. And then from there was like, I need more material, because magazines are expensive when you have no money. Although I have to think film was also expensive when you had no money in the 1970s. And I thought it was really, I appreciated how much it brought in the fact that he was untrained. He's not, like, he went to art school, but he didn't go to art school for photography. That was never a thing. And so, and this idea, like the way different people were talking about him, and that, like, with the models especially, and how he would say, you know, like, tilt your head this way and lift it this way, or turn it this way and tilt it like this. And this, like, he had this specific, it was almost like he didn't know what he was looking for until he saw it. And then the idea that, or maybe he did, and I'm wrong, I don't know, it's hard to say, but also that, you know, people would like ascribe all of this deep meaning into a photograph, and then it would cut to somebody who knew him, who would just start cackling and say he didn't think like that, he just liked what he took the photo of, which was so great. It was very open about his sexual appetite. Like I said, it had many of his lovers in there. It talked about his relationship with the Mine Shaft, which was a members only gay male BDSM club in New York City. when I was looking up a little bit about that, because I was like, okay, well, apparently I want to read about the mine shaft now. This is interesting. One of the fun facts about it is that Freddie Mercury is wearing a mine shaft t-shirt in one of Queen's official music videos. I love this so much because I feel like it's one of those, like, if you know, you know.
Right.
And so it just happened and nobody said you have to change that, because how would they know? I don't know how to feel. There's this whole section of it that I don't really know how to feel about. And I don't know if it's up to me to kind of come to feelings one way or the other anyway. I don't know anything about photography. I was barely alive when some of this was happening, all of that. But it talks about how there was a phase, like basically the latter phase of his life, he was only photographing and having sex with Black men. Well, I don't think he was only photographing, because he also, like, because he ended up with AIDS, and then he was photographing anything and everything he could as quickly as he could before he died to build up his legacy. But like, he had this very specific focus on Black men, and I felt like it was a real choice by the filmmakers to acknowledge that he received criticism because it came across to many, and there were Black people who spoke up about it as fetishization. And in a problematic way. And I felt like it was a choice to have his defender be a Black woman he was friends with in college. And so by having her say, well, he photographed what he loved, and he loved Black men, and it's like, that was supposed to be the thing to make it okay. And that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. And I get that, like, if that's her impression, that's her impression. But it felt like whoever was putting the documentary together really wanted to make that the truth and make that the definitive answer on whether it was problematic or not. And I don't know that that was fair. I don't know. Did you have a take on that when you were watching it? Did it stand out for you at all?
It did not stand out for me, only because I am a photographer, which is weird because honestly, I'd never heard of Mapplethorpe before.
Is that because you're not into gay men pink photography, perhaps?
That could be it. It's the way most of his stuff is black and white, and the contrast between black and white, the starker it becomes, the more powerful the picture is. And so I didn't even, like, when they said it, I was like, oh, okay. It didn't even dawn on me of any sort of fetish or what you were saying earlier. It wasn't a thing for me, but also I'm very naive too. So I was just kind of taking it like, okay, so okay. So towards the end of his life, he liked Black men. All right. Mm-hmm. It wasn't, because he did photograph. There were several where there was a Black man and a white man. Remember? Do you remember?
Yeah, they both had.
There was a whole series.
Yes, so cool. These two men had alopecia, and it was photographing them together. Well, okay, so they were the ones who were talking about how there wasn't always this meaning, because there was.
Yes, that's right.
Photo of. So they're standing, and so the Black man is facing one way, and the white man is behind him with his chin over his shoulder.
Right.
And I guess there are people who have looked at that and have tried to say that it's about, like, white man's dominance over Black men, and the Black man who was in that photo was laughing at how stupid that was, and he said it was because his neck was too short to fit over the other guy's shoulder. They actually tried both positions. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's also hard to say kind of either way on these things too, because we're watching one documentary. We never saw the shows that were put on, and there were shows that were put on where it was like nothing but Black men in it. And you can buy books still of like that collection, but I'm not going to.
Like, even his most famous picture, I never saw. It never was in my world.
Which one did you mean? The one in the suit, the business
in the suit. Yeah, that's like his most famous. Yep.
Yeah. It's a beautifully done photo, but
never.
And so clearly you didn't remember because you didn't know who he was at all. And I don't think I was old enough to pay attention, but I didn't know that he was part of this like massive controversy. They were showing his work. They were touring I forget what they called it, the perfect something or other. But it was 3 of his collections. So
Oh.
there was that really infamous one that I was talking about called X,
Mhm.
which has like the really provocative stuff. And then there was one that was like a series of um
XYZ.
yeah, it was XYZ. So X was like the really like that was the provocative stuff, the bullwhip in the anus and the fisting. And there's one of like one man urinating into another man's mouth and some other ones. And then there was one of the collections was portraits, including some famous people like Donald Sutherland. And then I forget what the other one was. Was it flowers?
I think it's like all the stuff, all the thing. Yeah, it was like he loved to photograph flowers.
Yeah,
he was
I think it
brilliant at
was
it.
flowers. And then when it went to show in Washington, D.C., I guess Jesse Helms lost his damn mind. And the whole thing, like, I have to admit, I had heard of Jesse Helms before. I didn't really know who he was, to be fair. I still don't fully know who he was, except that he was some fucking asshole politician who hated everybody. I mostly heard about him as a racist, which I believe he was, wasn't he? Wasn't he like a horrible racist?
I am looking it up now. Like, what is his claim to fame?
But he was also very clear, like a gigantic, like, this isn't art, this is film.
Senator from North Carolina. I couldn't remember what the state
Horrible.
was.
Horrible. And I was telling Chris before, I was like, I was writing up my notes for talking about this, and I have one bullet about Jesse Helms, and all it says is just fuck Jesse Helms. And you know what? I stand by it.
True. Oh my gosh. Yeah. He was like, you need to come up here, and I can't even show these. I will not show these pictures, but they're here. Come look at them. It was,
Right? What a
yeah.
loser. And so then it kind of ends with he got AIDS,
Yep.
and it went pretty quickly, and he died. What was it, the mid 90s?
Yeah. Yeah. Mid 90s, I think 95, maybe. But
So
yeah, he was a beautiful man. Like his whole life, he was just a beautiful man. I thought he was beautiful.
yeah, he
And
was.
so here's one thing. So I didn't know by watching the documentary, I did not know because of course I didn't know who he was, but I think we've all seen a picture that he did, and it's Patti Smith's album cover, Horses. He
Yes.
did that. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, I've seen the picture 1,000 times.
Yeah.
But I didn't know like that
He,
was
he did some of the most famous photographs of Patti Smith. Like if you think of any iconic photograph of her back in the day, he probably did most of them. I think like Bob Gruen did some other ones. Like some of those photographers who were on the punk scene would have done some of them, but he did some of the most iconic, and he was in some of the most iconic photos with her. Although I also have to say, like, I had really complicated feelings about Just Kids after watching this, because it shows how, like, when he finds out that he has AIDS and when he starts to realize that it's a problem, that it's turning into a real serious thing, and his health is getting worse and he's dying. And they talk about, they had his assistants on, his brother, as well as a few others, talking about how he basically photographed almost nonstop. He took commissions for everything. He reached out to specific friends, even, or people he had photographed before, saying, like, you need me to photograph you because this is going to be the last one.
Mhm.
He didn't want, he had like all this money, and it was just as he was really making
Right.
money, and he was trying to make as much money as he could, and he didn't want to leave it to anyone, because his whole thing was like, I need to leave a legacy, I need to be as famous as possible, I need everybody to know who I am and what I did. And so he leaves this charitable foundation, or he established a charitable foundation, which probably exists to this day, which is like fine. It's absolutely fine to leave your money to charity to establish a foundation. But it really made me rethink Just Kids, which is such a beautifully written, incredibly moving book. And she talks about how at the end of his life, he said, Patty, you need to tell our story. You need to make sure everyone knows our story. And I saw it as, we had this beautiful, incredible relationship. We were so important to each other. The world needs to know about it. And after watching the documentary, it makes me question if that was actually true, or if it was just part of my legacy needs to live on. I need to continue in people's memory. I need to still be a part of the consciousness, and you can help me do this because we had this relationship. And I don't know if that's fair But I also feel like it might be because the documentary was really interesting in the sense that he was not portrayed as a saint
No.
at all. He was portrayed as talented, as selfish, as like he was
Right.
multifaceted. I don't know. Like, and it's definitely like it's left me thinking since then. I feel like anything that makes me think that much, and also like it just really helped plug in a piece of that history for me. Hearing about how much he and how much Warhol hated him, I thought was
Oh yeah, there
interesting.
was a rival there. He wanted to beat Warhol, like money wise. Like how much does he
Yes.
have versus how much do I have?
Yes, but Warhol didn't like him either. And then seeing the portraits they took of each other, both incredible in their own way. So, yes, I absolutely recommend this. It's a beautifully done documentary of a complicated but important LGBTQ figure in our history.
For sure.
That is all for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us. If you've enjoyed this show, please make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you'll get notified when we release an episode. Or if you have a friend that you think would like the show, please tell them all about it. I feel like people need queer media recommendations now more than ever.
Yes.
Again, if you'd like to support the show, we have a link to Ko-fi in our show notes, or you can visit ko-fi.com/queerly recommended. Not necessary, absolutely appreciated.
Yes. Or if you want to connect with us on your favorite social media sites, just search for Queerly Recommended on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or email us at podcast@queerlyrecommended.com. Goodbye, everyone.
Yay! We
Yay.
did it. Woo! It's a Tuesday. Are Tuesday episodes even more chaotic than
I think so.
Tuesdays?
I think so.
Woof. No more
No more
episode
Tuesdays.
announcements. No more Tuesdays. All right, I'm gonna stop recording. Recording is in progress, by the way. The lady said.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, maybe I'll get a little drink of water.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Like my bathroom is 2 steps away, so if I have to excuse myself, it takes 2 seconds. All this water.
Yeah, that's good. All right, you ready?
How's my hearing? How's my hearing? How's my sound?
You sound good. How's mine?
Yeah, you sound good too.
Okay, so I probably don't need to acknowledge the lack of my microphone.
No, you don't need to acknowledge it.
Okay. Fuck those haters.
As long as you stay close, I think you sound good this close.
Okay, so
are you wearing lipstick?
No.
Okay, it looks like you're wearing lipstick.
It was a tinted lip balm.
Girl.
When you're running out of your other lip balms and you find the one at the bottom of the
That's the one thing I love about myself. Color of my lips. Never in my life have I ever worn lipstick.
I don't wear it very often. I don't like it. I don't like how.
Yeah, I don't. Like, I barely can get by with chapstick. I don't like to have anything on my lips.
I have to have that. I don't like.
I mean, I have to have it, but I don't even like it.
Oh, well. Yeah. I don't know what to tell you.
I know. I got nothing. Okay.
All right.
Okay.